And he'll have some pace to aim at here as well, because habitual pace pusher Corrin Wood heads them 7-1 for Donald McCain and Jason Maguire. Cape Tribulation, who's won this race before and was third in it last year. Trust and Times, Tim Easterby and Henry Brooks. Cedra Bleu, aboard whom Sam Welly-Cohen was brilliant at Aintree last time in defeat. Vintage Star, trainer and owner, won this last year with Cloudy 2. Dolatulo, good second at Sandown earlier in the season. Knock a Hand for Richard Lee and Andrew Thornton. Richard, who's mountainous, is one of the stars of tomorrow's Welsh National Show. Fentara, Broadway Buffalo. Rose of the Moon for David O'Mara and Jake Greenwell, one of a small handful of jumpers David's got in his flat-based powerhouse yard. And Mickey Hammond's Master of the Hall is the 33-1 outsider of the party. Former Nicky Henderson trainee, of course.
For them now, he calls them in, and they're off. Away they go in the William Hill Rowland Meyrick handicap chase. 3 miles and a furlong ahead of them, and a long run over 3 furlongs before they leave the ground to the first of the 18 fences. The nose-banded grey Corrin Wood around the outer, and a line of 4 with Knock a Hand up the rail. A Vintage Star in the Trevor Hemming silks, the quarter jacket, and the other of the greys, Rose of the Moon, and this quartet vying for the overall early advantage. The mare Fentara, red cap, tracks the leading 4, with Dolatulo close to the fence, an emerald green jacket ahead of Cedra Bleu. Then Cape Tribulation, winner of this race 2 years ago, Pale Silks, with 3 behind, Trust and Times in the red and black. Broadway Buffalo, the Tommy Whittle chase winner, again ridden with patience, it would seem, by Conor O'Farrell. And Master of the Hall in the stripes is just about last as they prepare to rise for the first time. And little separating the leading quartet on landing, all safely to the other side. And now the first of 4 scheduled ditches in the race. Corrin Wood on the far side, working into Rose of the Moon, Vintage Star and Knock a Hand, who had to reach for that one, rather dragged his hind legs through it. Trust and Times, little untidy in midfield. In truth, may not have seen much daylight had Cedra Bleu coming back in his lap. Middle one in the back straight, first time, and on that occasion, Broadway Buffalo, green sleeves and cap, just about the last to touch down. So onto the 4th they go, the lead chopping and changing. Corrin Wood with a distinct advantage on landing there, and Fentara, having jumped off handily, has just drifted back to be slightly worse than mid-division at this still very early stage. Past the fences in the back straight is another ditch. Corrin Wood from Rose of the Moon. Cedra Bleu, orange cap for Sam Welly-Cohen, jumping up well there, taking 3rd place ahead of Vintage Star. Then Dolatulo close to the rail from Trust and Times. Knock a Hand up on the outer in mid-division from Fentara red cap, who's the shadow to Cape Tribulation, and a couple of lengths to Master of the Hall, and finally Broadway Buffalo. So on the crown of the bend, they're heading towards the end of the first mile of the race. And there's 11 strong field for this grade 3 prize, first run back in 1957. Corrin Wood and Rose of the Moon, a pair of greys, this early stage at least, endeavouring to make it a white Christmas in this neck of West Yorkshire. A Vintage Star disputing 3rd with Cedra Bleu, who's under heavy restraint. Dolatulo right around the inner, Knock a Hand wide, and then Trust and Times as they take the first of 4 plain fences up the home straight. Fentara, Cape Tribulation extreme right, pale jacket, and then Master of the Hall and Broadway Buffalo. Into the wings of fence 7 then, Corrin Wood jumping soundly there. Vintage Star didn't see a lot of daylight, had Rose of the Moon and Cedra Bleu coming across him, and wisely is now angled out by James Reevely. Over the next they go. Corrin Wood from Rose of the Moon, Cedra Bleu, the Vintage Star and Dolatulo. Trust and Times the red and black from Fentara. Knock a Hand briefly bustled along. Into the wings of fence 9, takes them to halfway. Spring heel leap there from Corrin Wood. Knock a Hand bit untidy on that occasion. And it's Corrin Wood and Jason Maguire who will lead them at the halfway point of the William Hill Rowland Meyrick. Still stalked by Rose of the Moon. The Vintage Star, cheek pieces, just about nosing into 3rd once again from Cedra Bleu and Dolatulo right around the inside. Trust and Times, the red and black, is close up in 6th. Then the pushed along Knock a Hand on the outside. Cape Tribulation up the inner, a half-length Fentara. Broadway Buffalo still ridden with exaggerated patience by Conor O'Farrell. Green cap, and Master of the Hall likewise under a patient ride from Joe Colliver. Down the back straight they go once more, and on to fence 10. And Corrin Wood bidding to put up what would be a modern away carrying record in this race under the stopping burden of 11-12. Leading here Rose of the Moon at the other end of the weights in the hands of Jake Greenwell. Vintage Star on the far side, a little slower through the air than one or two of the others, and Broadway Buffalo made quite a serious error there. He pitched down on his nose was well picked up by Conor O'Farrell. He's in last place still, but he's now about 12 lengths off the leader, Corrin Wood, who's begun to take the pace of the race, and there Trust and Times blunders and unseats Henry Brooks. So Trust and Times is out of the race at the 11th, and Corrin Wood is beginning to string them out, jumping boldly. Dolatulo now moving up to chase. Rose of the Moon coming under pressure is back to 4th as Cedra Bleu Orange Cap goes 3rd. And then Cape Tribulation creeping a little bit closer on the inside, Pale Jacket, ahead of Vintage Star. Broadway Buffalo is now on the move. Knockerhand is struggling. And then Fentara, and finally Master of the Hall. So the last of the ditches, final fence in the back straight, 5 out. Corrin Wood from Dolatulo and Cedra Bleu close up in 3rd. Cape Tribulation disputing 4th with the ridden along grey Rose of the Moon. Then a small break to Vintage Star. Broadway Buffalo is now about 8 lengths off the lead as they move out of the back straight on the long run towards the final 4 fences. From the rear of the field, Master of the Hall has picked off 1 or 2 of the stragglers. Striped Jacket just gone past Fentara. Knockerhand meanwhile looks like pulling up, and on the inner up ahead it's Dolatulo who puts it up to Corrin Wood. Cape Tribulation has made stealthy progress though into 3rd place ahead of Cedra Bleu. Then Rose of the Moon. Now Broadway Buffalo shaken up by Conor O'Farrell, but is still closing. Vintage Star next. Fentara, the mare, red cap, rallying under pressure, and Corrin Wood goes on again from Dolatulo. 4 out. Corrin Wood came up with a big leap there for Maguire. Moves on by over a length from Dolatulo. Whaley Cohen nursing Cedra Bleu into it. Cape Tribulation shaken up. Here's 3 out. Corrin Wood just ahead. Dolatulo having another crack at him. Then Cape Tribulation, Cedra Bleu. Broadway Buffalo is in 5th place now, struggling to mount a challenge. Dolatulo takes on Corrin Wood, and it's Dolatulo who jumped on 2 out. Between the final 2 fences they come. Cape Tribulation now moving off in pursuit of Dolatulo. Here's the final fence. Dolatulo by over 2 lengths. Cape Tribulation chasing. Then Corrin Wood. Dolatulo and Dougie Costello in front and staying on powerfully. And Dolatulo perhaps staking an early claim for the National. Dolatulo wins the Rowland Meyrick. Cape Tribulation carried out in his shield again in 2nd. Then Corrin Wood and Cedra Bleu.
Well, it's been a breakthrough year for trainer Warren Greatrex, and this an important success for him. The Rowland Meyrick Handicap chase goes the way of Dolatulo at a big 14-1 in the hands of the ever-assured Dougie Costello, who drilled him into the last as though his life depended on it. The horse picked up for him, and he remains progressive.